everybody wants everything to be important, right? So when everything's important, nothing's important. That's my mantra. So you need to establish a path of what good spiffs look like, or special contests. A way to go about that, right, is you look at what's truly important in that time. So I had a lot of ideas thrown at me for Q1. We deemed that half of those, right, are more appropriate for Q2, Q3, Q4. So let's hone in on what's going to make the most impact. A lot of times people will throw spiffs out in the universe and then they're like, oh, that was the end result. That was cool. We paid a bunch of money and we hope we did good. So I'll share just a story of the bad of that and the good of that. So what bad looks like is we had an incentive program where we focused on getting a high Q2. Well, we were on semi-annual plans. So Q2 by nature will be high anyway, because that's when people are reading and getting inflection points, accelerators, but nonetheless. And we said, whoever makes 100%, we're going to give you a bunch of extra cash for it. And it was significant extra cash. And what I did at the time, and this is important, I think this is where people maybe miss, is what is the expected outcome? Put it in a SMART type goal, right? Get a number to it. So for us, we counted how many people, before we announced the contest, how many people were slotted to hit 100% anyway. Let's call it 52 reps, right? We're supposed to get to 100%. And we said it would be great if we had 60 get to 100, right? Even if we make an impact, plus we know we're already going to pay those 52, right? Because they're going to hit it anyway. We're not going to exclude them. We did, and 48 hit quota, and not 52 and not 60. So we paid out a bunch of money, right, for not a significant amount of benefit. Now, what helped with that is, again, at the start of it, create your stake in the ground, start the baseline, figure out what ROI is going to mean for a spiff. The good example of that is, I don't know how many of you in the orgs do something like March Madness. If you're on a current fiscal year, it's really to get the quarter going, usually a pipeline type led incentive. And we had never done more than X, right, in any kind of pipeline contest or launch. The other thing that I want to call out is, don't underestimate the power of non-monetary incentives. Monetary incentives are great, but they have a comp plan to accomplish that. These are type A folks, competitive team players. The idea of getting a fancy watch, getting a fancy pair of sunglasses, eating dinner with the CEO, those all bring about massive behavior. So we put a contest like that in place. Instead of getting X pipeline, we ended up getting like 30% more, a whole third more in pipeline buildup. We had never done that in company history. And not only did we do it, we had meetings and meetings and meetings ahead of time about safeguards, how to make sure they don't game that. What can we do in our CRM to make sure that we're not getting bad pipeline data in? Rules around eligibility, right? I didn't want somebody who was here for a week to get that, or somebody who leaves mid-quarter to get it. We had all these planning sessions. So net, have multiple conversations before deciding on a spiff, even though that product person is super like, hey, get the spiff out, give them extra quarter credit, give them extra Pres Club. Have those guardrails and baselines set up at the forefront. And that way you can negate your risks, avoid the unnecessary gaming, and get an outcome that you want, or it's a lesson learned, right? You move on and you don't repeat that mistake again with a spiff.
What I see all the time is you have all this effort that goes into designing this spiff structure as an example. And then the next year, or 2 years later, you're redesigning the exact same thing from scratch versus like it's a playbook and it's an ongoing motion, and you build this is one play in our playbook. And when we need to roll this out, these are the assumptions that need to be true. This is the criteria. This is the expectation for outputs, and this is how we're going to measure it. And there's this concept of like learning from mistakes is very, very valuable, right? And you could run that spiff in that example with the hypothetical 48 versus 52 outcome. I mean, if you walk away from that and you don't learn anything and update your playbook, then it truly is a cost. But if it actually updates the playbook, you could argue now you're building an IP asset within your sales and go-to-market motion that is going to help you hit better numbers in the future and kind of scales. Yeah, how do you take that and kind of like build it into an ongoing motion that it just enables your sales org to operate even more agility?